All right, it is mid-May. We're up here by the home paddocks, so we got some skid steer attachments and T-posts and stuff. So if you're wondering what the junk's about, this isn't really a typical pasture for me. But what I wanted to talk to you about today is what happens when something goes wrong. What's the decision process? And when I mean something goes wrong, I mean a goat or multiple goats or animals in general don't produce very well, or they get sick, or they get wormy, or they die, or something like that. Or maybe they get ate by a coyote, whatever it is. There's always a decision to make that is whether, you kind of write it off as it's that animal and that animal needs to go, or whether you say it's something with my management practices and maybe I should consider making management practice changes. And given any particular scenario, depending on your goals, you present with the exact same situation, different people will make different decisions on the range of that spectrum. One thing I will point out, if you are attempting to be a low input producer, if you look at every time a goat gets sick or dies, or a couple of goats get sick or die, or something like that, and you go, oh, I need to change my management practices, what happens is a spiral into a high input management system. That's really where those systems come from trying to squeeze every last drop out of animals that maybe should just be replaced with better performing animals. And what I do, kind of the rule of thumb, anytime something goes wrong, is I ask myself that question: is it the animal or is it me? Is it my management practices? Nowadays, it's almost always the animal. Very rarely do I make significant management practices changes in response to something going wrong. But it's still something worth considering all the time. I think every time something does go wrong, or just not as good as it could have gone as well. But the rule of thumb that I use is it just one or two animals that are having this problem? Or is it a sizable percentage of the herd? And it depends. There isn't a magic percentage that I go by. And just because it is a sizable percentage of the herd doesn't mean I'm going to make a management change. But that's kind of the starting point when I start to think about this. And anytime I do have to make a decision, a snap decision to cull out an animal, this isn't a case of culling of just like, oh, I've got something better to replace it with. This is a case of culling of like, no, this animal is a net negative, and I don't want it around anymore. And this is today's example right here. These guys have been out on pasture for about a month and a half now, rotating through. They haven't spent any more than 3 days on any particular paddock. None of the other goats are symptomatic as far as worms. I'm sure they have worms. They are commercial goats. I guarantee you they all have worms. That's part of their biome. But this particular animal has gone, not the kids so much, but the doe has gone symptomatic. And I checked her yesterday, FAMACHA scored her, and she's dry. She's not milking anymore, and she's pretty anemic. So most likely, Haemochus contortus barber pole worm. And at this point, I'm going to get this animal out of here. I did worm her yesterday, and I thought about it overnight, and I'm going to just remove her from here. She's not nursing her kids anymore. They'll stay out here, and her kids will be sold. They aren't going to stay around either. Genetically speaking, I don't want her around anymore. I don't want her out in the pasture shedding parasite eggs, and making it harder for other goats to be productive. I don't want her genetically. Even if she gets better, she's gone. And I also don't think if I just left her out here, I'm pretty sure she would just die. So, in fact, I don't think she would probably survive the move to the next paddock, to be honest. So that's the decision I'm making, is to isolate her. And the goal is basically to get her a little bit more healthy, take her to the sale barn, and make it very clear when I take her to the sale barn, hey, this is a cull animal. Make sure you note that when to sell it. I can't control whether they actually follow through on that or not, but I always make it a point. I make them write it down on the sales ticket. But yeah, pretty clear case. Just one goat out of 50 head of nannies having a problem under my management practices that are reasonably proven as far as parasite resistance goes. And yeah, this is a case of I'm not going to change my management practices for this one goat. You start doing that, and like I said, you start getting into a downward spiral, and you end up in a high input system, and it becomes economically infeasible. So Rest of the herd is doing real well. The only other one I'm kind of keeping an eye on is this gal here. And that is because she is raising quads. Nice set of quads, by the way. No, they're not the biggest kids out here for sure, but they're all nicely evenly sized. And it's 2 does that will definitely be kept because she is a very good producer. And 2 billies that I decided to leave intact. So, and I think one of them, the billies, is right there. That's him. Again, not the biggest kid in the world, but out of a set of quads from a mom that can raise them herself on pasture. And that I think is worth something, and I'm kind of hoping somebody else thinks it's worth something too, and will give me a little bit of money for those billies, a little bit more than I would get market value for them anyway. But yeah, that's about all that's going on.